Welcome. Today I'm going to be sharing an exciting topic with you called How to Write a Book in Only 7 Days. Yep. How to write a book in only 7 days. Something like 80% of people in the world, they have a desire to write a book, but they've never taken the first step. And I believe a lot of that is simply because they don't know where to start, simply because they're confused. And a confused mind does what? Does nothing. So we held these big desires in our heart of what we want to do, but it can seem so daunting. It can seem like, man, that's such a huge thing that will require years and years for me to do. But I want to tell you, you can get it done fast. And we're going to talk about how you could write a book. Yeah, you could write a book in 7 days. You just need a roadmap to be able to do it. So thank you for joining me. Listen, I'm excited because this is all part of a webinar I'm getting ready to do. It's called Speak, Coach, and Write Your Way to Millions. And I'm going to be doing next week, I'm going to be doing a 2-hour webinar on how to speak, coach, and write your way to millions. How to build what I call an expert empire. Listen, you won't want to miss this. If you have any kind of desire at all to be a speaker, to be a high-ticket coach, to be an author in the future, you're going to want to connect with us with this next seminar that I'm doing. It's free. I'm going to give you a complimentary gift. And I'm just tired of seeing speakers, coaches, and writers, especially those who are aspiring to be that, just stay stuck and never move towards their goals because they just don't know how. They just don't have a plan. And that night, I'm going to pull back the curtains and I'm going to really show you some of the foundational principles that built my business and my expert empire. And it's going to really help you. So all you got to do is go to speak, coach, and write your way to millions. I got it here back on the screen. Speak, coach, and write your way to millions. So let's get right into our topic here today. And the topic is how to write a book in 7 days. That's right. First of all, you got to believe it's possible, right? You got to believe you can do it. Now, let's face it. If you don't have a tool, things can be hard, right? If you tell me, hey, here's what I want you to do. I want you to, will you please tear apart this engine on this car? Now, listen, I've tore apart engines before, but I've had tools. So if I don't have a tool, it's going to be impossible or very, very, very difficult at least for me to be able to tear apart the engine. I need a tool. If I have a tool, tools do what? Tools help us get things done. What's the key word? Faster. You got it? Faster. And so it's true with a book. Sometimes all we need is a tool. And sometimes maps, right, can be tools to help us get things done faster. So, hey, you say, hey, I want to go to California. Well, I want to get there fast. But if I don't have a map and I just jump in the car and try to drive there, man, I could end up driving north all the way to Michigan, then cut over to, we'll go down to Texas and then cut over to California, and it took me way longer than what it should have. So what we need really are maps, or what I call frameworks. If we have a framework, and everything we do, just so you know, everything I do, I have a framework for it. I have a system set up for it. And when we have structures and systems, then we can increase our size and our speed. Did you get that? When I have systems and structures, I can increase my size and my speed. But without systems and structures, my size stays small and I remain going slow through life. And if I go slow, there's a chance I'll never write that book. So I want to give you a framework. I want to give you a map to being able, seriously, you can do this in 7 days. Now, I didn't say, I'm not making a promise to you that you're going to be able to sit down for a half an hour a day and write a book. No, I said days. That means you decide, number one, I'm going to take 7 days, the whole day, right? And I'm going to spend 12 hours a day for 7 days writing a book until I complete it. So it starts with, I believe it's possible. Number 2, I need a map, right? And number 3, it takes a commitment. It takes a commitment to close everything out, shut everything off, and lock in to 7 consistent days to be able to do this. But if you do it, I'm going to tell you, you can have a book at the end of 7 days. So now let me give you, you got to do the commitment. I can bring you the tool. You got to bring me the commitment. So let's go. Here's the roadmap. First of all, which is the obvious thing, you got to decide what is your topic. You got to lock in to what I call your one word. What is the one word that you're going to focus in on for your personal message to the masses, right? So what you want to do is you don't want to be like some of these people out here that are just generalist. So many people, they say, well, I can speak on a lot of topics. Yeah, that's your problem. I know a lot about everything. Well, that's your problem. Especially, I have a lot of people who connect with me who are pastors. And so, they think, well, I can teach on many topics. And so sometimes they're the hardest ones because they know just enough about everything to be dangerous, right? And you don't want to be a generalist. You don't want to be a person out there, well, I can speak on everything, and you'll make no impact. And what you got to do is you got to narrow down your topic to one word. And that one word is, so to speak, it's the Goliath that you have conquered. It's the Goliath that you took out. It's not, I believe strongly in this little principle. It's this. It's learn, live, and lead. Learn, live, and lead. And one of the problems I run into with a lot of people is that they learn a lot and then they go teach stuff, right? You can teach a lot of stuff, but that doesn't mean you lived a lot of stuff. So some people, they hear messages on wealth, they hear messages on prosperity and money, and they learn it from somebody else, write it down on notes, and then they go teach it to someone before they've ever lived it. And so instead of, and then we think, well, we can lead this. No, you got to first learn, then you got to live it out, and then you lead it. So it's not enough just to preach about David and Goliath. You have to be a David in your own life and go and slay Goliath. And then once you've lived it and you know how to be a giant killer, then you can go, now that you've led it, now you can lead others to be giant killers themselves. So in David's time, there wasn't any giant killers. He became the first giant killer, but David reproduced many giant killers because he did what I just said. He learned it. He was learning, kill the bear, kill the lion. Then he lived it. He faced his own Goliath. He learned how to kill his own Goliath. And then he led a movement of killing giant killers. Isn't that cool? Isn't that awesome? And so in the same way, you got to look at what is the demon that you've conquered in your life. That becomes your topic, whatever that is. So I don't know what that is. Maybe it's, let's just say you have a bad attitude. Man, you had a bad attitude, right? So your topic would be, attitude. That's your main topic. And you can word it however you want to word it. So you have a topic. I'm going to talk about attitude. I'm going to write a book about attitude. And then from that, what you're doing is then you're going to create 7 points. All right. or you're going to create 7 solutions. You're going to have 7 how-tos, or you're going to have 7 principles. So you have your topic, attitude. Now, what are the 7 principles I want to teach about having a great attitude? All right? My subject's attitude. What are the 7 problems with having a bad attitude? So you could do 7 principles of bad attitude, or you could reverse it around and said 7 problems that having a bad attitude will cause you in life. Or you could just do a how-to, right? How to have a great attitude. Here's our 7 keys I'm going to give you on how to have a great attitude. So problems, how-to, principles. So you have your topic, how to get a great new attitude. My 7 principles. I'm just throwing it out, all right? I'm just making it up. So you got your topic. Now you got your 7 things that you want to talk about concerning that topic. On a principle that you learned, on how you cut Goliath's head off, on a how did you do it? Maybe you want to tell 7 things on how I did it, how I overcame addiction. Here's 7 key steps that I did. Or problems. Here's the 7 problems that will help you, and the 7 solutions, the problems and the solutions to help you move forward with your attitude or whatever your topic is. Okay? So now we got our topic. We got the 7 key points, which now become your 7 chapters. Right? So the first thing you want to do, all right, the beginning of your book starts off with this, the intro. What is the intro? The intro opens up with a big question. It opens up a big question. So like if I'm talking about finances, let's say my topic's finances, I open up with a big question. How many of you feel like in life that financially you thought you would be much further along than what you are at this stage of the game? Right? So I open up with that question. And what's that question going to cause? It's going to cause people to lean in, right? The first person who asks a question is the person who's leading. So you ask a question and be like, yeah, and they're going to say, yeah, me too. You want people to say me too because your book is now connecting with somebody. It's connecting with a heartfelt need, right? So you ask a big question. So you got to think about what is the big question. Then you tell your story. You tell your story how you had a major problem and you had a bad attitude. And let's say because you had a bad attitude, you got fired. Or let's say because you had a bad attitude, you got a divorce from a great person. And then later on, you're like, man, I realized if I'd have had a better attitude, things might have went a little bit better in my marriage, right? So you find out a problem, right? You tell your story. Here's what I did. Man, I went to work every day and I started listening to everybody else's negative attitude. I let their bad attitude jump on me. Have you ever done that? And you just tell the story and then you say, now here's what I learned. Here's what I learned. And here's the power punch. So the intro is really simple. You ask the question. You tell the story how you face that same problem, right? And then you give the power punch, right? Here's the power punch. Here's what I learned. I mean, everybody knows this quote, but we can just use it for this illustration. I learned that my attitude is going to determine my altitude in life. And I learned that blah, 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 blah. So now you got them, all right? I learned that attitude, you could just say basically I learned that, changing my attitude changed my life. It changed me mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, relationally, all these areas changed in my life because I got a better attitude. You got it? That's what you want to come to. Now, I'm going to share with you 7 key things. This is your intro. 7 key things on how to have a better attitude. I'm going to share with you 7 principles I learned, right? Or I'm just going to share with you how to have a better attitude towards your boss, right? That'd be a good topic. That'd be a good book topic. All right. So, and then now you got your 7 chapters. You got 7 things that you want to talk about attitude. So you could say like one chapter could be your attitude will get you further than your looks. Your attitude is more important than your talents. Your attitude is blah, 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 blah. And you can have these 7 points. These are the 7 points I want to talk about with attitude, right? And so those become your 7 chapters. Now, under each one of those points, now here's your framework. So you have your attitude will take you farther than your talents. That's what we're going to write about. That's chapter number 1, right? So you can open up the chapter. I always like asking a lot of questions, bringing people in. Now they read your intro. Now let's bring them into this topic, all right? Ask them a question, right? Have you ever looked at somebody and you noticed that maybe they didn't have all the skills that they needed, but yet somehow they defied the odds. They didn't have the physical appearance. They didn't have everything that they needed, but somehow they were able to defy the odds and climb to the top. And what's going to happen? That's going to ignite the person's imagination to think, yeah, I know a person that man, they weren't all that talented, but boy, did they have a positive attitude, and it took them a long ways, right? So that question opens their mind. Then you go into another story. You told your first story. Now you go into another story that happened to you, or that happened to somebody that you know. That, man, this person was, like a Rudy. This person was 5'7", and he wanted to play football all of his life and be a football player for Notre Dame, but he was too short. He didn't have the talent. He didn't even have the physical makeup, but man, he had attitude. And he achieved his dream by his attitude. So there's a story, right? And so you open that up, and then the story, don't ever tell a story. Some people just tell stories. You tell a story to bring what I call a PowerPoint punch. And I'm going to tell you this story about Rudy because at the end of that story, I'm going to hit you with something that's going to be like, wow, that is a life principle right there that I need to learn. That attitude, let's just say Rudy, attitude will bring you success in life. Attitude is what you need to achieve dreams that may seem like right now are impossible. Bam, that's your punching point. And people are like, wow, that's really cool. So the story, you got your question, you got your story, you got your punching point of that story. Then you use usually I like you using your own example, not the Rudy story, but then you can go into a modern example. So like you can look at somebody and find somebody that's a modern day example, and you could use them. Let's say you could use, I think it was, her name was Heather Whitestone. She was the first, they said, handicap Miss America. And she was asked one day, they said, what is the greatest handicap that you think a person could have? And she said, I think the greatest handicap a person could have is a bad attitude. Wow. See, that's a modern example of someone who achieved success. Now you're using that person as an example to bring home your main point of what you're trying to share in this particular chapter. Then you could go from a modern point, now this is, if you read my writings, you'll see I do this a lot. Then you say, okay, let's find a Old Testament example of this thing of attitude. Well, we talked about David and Goliath, right? You could go to David and Goliath and say, man, everybody else was afraid. Everybody else had a poor attitude. Everybody else thought it was impossible. But David walked up on the battlefield and he had a positive mental attitude. He knew he had former victories, and he said, hey, God will give me this victory. And so his attitude, he brought his attitude to the battlefield, and He did the impossible. Wow, there's a point on David. Then you could flip it around. You could say, oh, here's a New Testament example. New Testament, Paul. Hey, Paul was in the worst of the worst conditions. He was in the bottom level of a prison. And yet he wrote the words, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are praiseworthy, whatsoever things are good, whatsoever things are delightful. Think on these things. Man, people don't realize. He said that from one of the most darkest places ever. But he chose to focus his mind on positive. Bam! There's another point. Now, if you don't want to make it biblical in sense, you don't have to. You could use other people's points, Then 6, find a famous quote on that particular chapter, that particular subject of attitude. Go on the internet, type it in, and find some quotes on attitude and just read all the quotes, right? And pick out a great famous quote from someone who's highly successful. Very easy. The end of your chapter is what? You wrap it all up together. You make a conclusion, and then what you want to do inside of that conclusion, in my mind, so these are 7, you got 7 points and then 7 things that I think every chapter should have in it. You conclude it and you bring them to another coaching question. You could say, hey, let me ask you a coaching question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how has your attitude been this week? 1, you've been negative and everything's negative. 10, you're super positive. Rate yourself. 5 is you've been a little negative, you haven't been negative. Rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 so you can measure your progress as we move throughout this book. Bam. Or you could bring them to an action point. Hey, here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about one thing you've been really negative about. And for your coaching assignment, I want you to switch. Just change how you think about that negative situation. And I want you to take time to just flip the script. Flip the script. Whatever seems to be negative, flip the script. And I want you to write down a new story for that situation. Something that's positive. Now, for chapter number 2. Bam. Then listen. So in one day, you can do all 7 of these things. I mean really basic. You don't have to write big, long things, right? You can come up with a question. You can write a paragraph or 2 about a story. You can do your power punch. You could search the internet. You got 12 hours in that day. You could search the internet for examples, type the word in, search it, look at it, find a modern day example, right? You can do a search on your phone for a biblical, type in the word and search the Bible for different scriptures on attitudes. You can find some different examples in the old, you can cut and paste. Hey, let's put that scripture in there. And you could just saying, hey, look at what David said when he faced Goliath. This is how champions think. This is how champions come to the marketplace, right? Really simple. It doesn't have to be like really detailed, but people are going to get a lot out of this outline. Then took you maybe an hour to search different famous quotes to really pull like a really awesome one out. Then to come up with a coaching question doesn't take you that long. So really, I'm saying spend 12 hours in the day to make it, but really you could probably get up at 8, and by the time you finish off, say at 5 o'clock, you could have a whole chapter done in one day. So there's my blueprint, there's my outline. And so there's so many other things that I love to teach you about writing a book. And I started off, just to encourage you, I started off like this. This was the first book I ever wrote. I wrote it, and it was, it was 20 pages long right here, my first book. Word Explosion was my first one I ever did. I thought this was going to sell millions and millions of copies. I think I sold some to the people in my congregation at that time and family members. A few of my family members bought it, and that was about it, maybe 50. But I went down. I actually made this at Staples, right? I made the outside, printed off the inside, stapled it together. My wife and I, we stapled this and made this together. Isn't it hilarious? And so this is where I started. And this is my book called The Confidence Solution. This book was published by Penguin Books, the second largest publisher in the world. But I started here. Many people don't start because they want this. And where you need to do is just start small. Most people won't read this because it's so thick. Most people like the smaller fills. And if you just do what I just told you right there, you'll write a 50-page book just by going through this outline that I just wrote in 7 days. And so I started here at Staples, ended up getting a contract with Penguin Books, second largest publisher in the world, and they gave me a multi-$1,000 advance on writing this book before I even wrote it. So you can do this. And I always tell people to remember this. I flunked kindergarten and I got bad grades in English. But today, I'm a best-selling author. The Confidence Solution rose to number 21 on Amazon as a best-selling book. It's one of the highlights of my whole career. And I want you to know that if I can do it, you can do it too. So that's just one little thing. This is all part of my 83K Academy. This is how I help people become speakers, coaches, and authors. And we give you the tools, give you the frameworks. And I'm going to be doing a seminar coming up here next week. And you can register, but we're going to talk more than just about books. We're going to talk about how you can build a speaking career, how you can become a high-ticket coach. There's so many people, coaches that follow me. They're coaches, but they don't coach nobody. I got speakers that follow me. I'm a speaker, but nobody invites you to come speak. I got people who they want to be authors, but they still haven't got their book out yet. So you want to join me for this seminar. It's a complimentary ticket if you just go to Speak, Coach, and Write Your Way to Millions.com. Speak, Coach, and Write Your Way to Millions.com. And you can register for this conference that I'm doing. It's virtual, it's live, it's going to be on Tuesday night. It's going to be phenomenal. If you just click up above and share this, just share it with your tribe. And let's spread the word out there, because I know there's a lot of people out there that have the desires to do this. Desire reveals design. They want to be an author. Some people, they say, man, I love to coach people and help people. Some people, now that's not everybody, but then there's other people say, man, I'd love to also speak. We can teach you how to do all three of those, all right? And you got to register for the webinar. You got to get signed up. So share this for me if you would, all my tribe, all my people, my peoples out there. And let's get people moving forward. Desire reveals design, okay? There's a reason why you desire to become it. It's the same reason why an eagle desires to fly. He was designed for it. He was created for it by the Creator to fly. That's why he has a desire for it. So listen to your heart desires. You have a story, you have a message, and the masses need to hear it. You just need a map on how to get out there. So head on over to Speak, Coach, and Write Your Way to Millions.com. Get signed up for this seminar next week. It's going to be awesome.